we're going to spend a few minutes just working with this kind of format. We're going to construct a scatterplot, essentially reproducing what we've just seen. And we're going to do this in both Python and Excel. Okay, y'all like doing exercises? Okay, that's not the enthusiasm I'm looking for. I know it's Tuesday. Let's break out our computers. So you can hop over to part 1. And then you can see I've also, if you refresh the page, I've also posted the videos. I was a little bit behind on that. If I ever get behind on posting videos, you can just go to my main YouTube channel and just find the live streams there. So you don't have to wait for me to post the videos to the course page. You can always find the live streams whether I posted them here or not. But here I've just broken them out for you to just have in nice little chunks. So we left off last time talking about the scatter plots. So I'll post that a little bit later. But you can just click on the notebook to get back to where we were. Or I know you all are working on your own notebooks on your own, but this is just what I've done in the meantime. And then we're going to start by working with coffee per capita. So I'm just going to download this. So this goes into the downloads folder. And then I'm going to open a I'm going to go to desktop, and then we're in part 1.4. And then I'm just going to drag over, as always, drag over coffee per capita into the part 1.4 folder, which gives us our CSV file in the folder that corresponds to the part that we're in. And we're doing this, just to remind you every time, we're doing this to keep ourselves organized. We're only in part 1.4. We have 6 parts this semester, and each part has at least 4 subparts. So we're going to have, like, I don't know, 20 parts, 20 different folders by the end of the semester. And if you just let your files float freely in a folder, or even in your downloads folder, I guarantee you there will come a time where you won't be able to find the data set you're looking for. This allows you to always be able to find what you're looking for. It's worth the extra effort. Okay, so if you double click on this, it brings up this spreadsheet. I'm going to hit Save As, and then I'm just going to save this as copy per capita, which saves in this same folder. This saves it as a XLSX workbook. Okay, how many of you have done this so far? You've made it this far. Not everyone. This is not the level of engagement that I'm looking for. So I'm going to have you check your neighbor's work in a second. So what we're going to do essentially is create a scatter plot. We're going to look at the 2 different time periods. We're going to have an X variable representing our base year. And then on the Y variable, we're going to have the 2019 year. So if you're constructing a scatter plot, anyone know where we might start? We're trying to look at which countries have increased or decreased their coffee consumption per capita. How might we start to create a figure here in Excel? Is that a hand? Yeah. And then, yeah, click on a scatter plot. Yeah, so we want to select the data that we're interested in, and then go into Insert, and then click on the figure that we're looking for, which in this case is Scatterplot. Remind me of your name?
Jason.
So I'm sorry, I've asked you for your name like 14 different times. And it's not Chase.
It's Jason.
Right. So Jason's recommending selecting the data that we're interested in and then finding a scatter plot. And that's the general process we're going to follow. So if we're looking between these 2 years, I would like to start with 1999, the year I can't pronounce. We can start by including the column, the 1999, as in the selected data. We'll come back to this in a second. But then we should also be able to select 2019 as the second data. And this is the last year that we have records for. So we have both of these data, these columns selected. Once you're here, you can go to Insert, and then click on Scatterplot. And you see some options here. You can do a lot of fancy things, or you can try to do a lot of fancy things in Excel. In general, one of the best practices for creating nice visuals is to keep it very simple. At least at the very beginning, we want to keep it as simple as possible. So in this case, we're going to ignore all the other stuff and just click on Scatter. So when I click on Scatter, it looks like this. Anyone know why it looks like this? Did you all get this problem? Yeah.
Is it because the units go up to 2,500 but we don't exactly have that many units in our data?
Right, so we have sort of an axis problem here. The horizontal axis goes all the way up to, past 2,000, and then the same thing for the vertical axis. Anyone know why we have a data point that's that high. Do we know why this is? Like, what's this doing up here? This says there's a coffee consumption per capita that we're trying to plot. That's 1999 and 2019. Do we know what this is? Yeah.
It's the A row. It's like the dates for the year.
So Excel doesn't know that we're trying to give the column names. So there are a couple of options here. I find the simplest one is to just not select the column, and then we'll come back to this in a second. Remind me of your name? Matt. So Matt's saying this is our date. There are a couple ways of doing this. One thing you could do is just go in here, click select data, and you could say there's this horizontal category axis labels. And one thing this could do for you is give you a column name. But I'm actually going to, we can select, we can just go in and select X and select all of this data for the X values, and then go in and select all of this data for the Y values, excluding the column names. And click OK, and that should fix our problem. So all we've done is made sure that it's not using the column names as data points specifically. Okay, anyone get this? How many of you were able to successfully create a scatter plot? Okay, if you haven't created a scatter plot, maybe check with someone next to you, and they can help you out. But we can make this figure a little bit better. Anyone have any ideas for how to make this figure look more informative? Yeah, Luke. So you could add a line of best fit if you wanted to. We haven't really talked about that, so I'm a little bit hesitant to add that in. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about lines of best fit. We just haven't gotten there yet. So we could label the axis. Yeah. So I'm going to go in, click on Add Chart Element. I'm going to go into Axis Titles, and I'm going to click on Primary Horizontal Axis. And our x-axis is 1999. So I'm going to say 1999 coffee consumption. And then I'm also going to add a title for the vertical axis. We'll call this primary vertical, and this will be 2019 coffee consumption. And then we could just change the title to be coffee consumption per capita. Okay, what else could we do here? Yeah. So yeah, a 45-degree line could work here. I'm sure there's a way to do it in Excel. It's not something I'm so familiar with, adding a 45-degree line here. We can do it pretty simply in Python. Yeah, Darren. Yeah, so we see two different scales differently on the horizontal and vertical axes. And this makes it pretty hard to see if there's an increase or a decrease. So I believe we go in, let's see, double click on the axis. So if we go into axis options, we can click on minimum, and then we can change the maximum. We have a maximum on the vertical axis of 25, so let's change the maximum on the horizontal axis to be 25. And if we hit enter, then we get this figure. It's not square, so we could change I think it's easier to read if it's square. Wouldn't you agree? Probably square is easier to read with when we're using the same units on vertical and horizontal. Okay, so I think this is a pretty good figure. We've plotted 2 different years, same units, and because we have a panel, this gives us a measure of changes through time. All right, how many of you think this is easier to do in Python? Correct. How many of you think it's easier to do in Excel? As I've just told you that the other answer is correct. So this is probably a little bit easier to do in Python, but your mileage may vary. So what I'm going to do is hop back over to the notebook. We started this last time. I'm just going to load the imports and then the file path. I've closed the notebook since we've last done this, so I just need to reload it. And then I'm going to load coffee consumption per capita. And then I just want to take a look at this before we get started. So it's kind of an overwhelming data set. Would you agree? This looks kind of overwhelming. We have lots of years, and we really just care about 2 of them. So yeah, I'd say this is somewhat overwhelming. What we can do here, if we're writing out our figure, before we copy any code from the slides, I want you to take a guess at what the syntax will look like here for a scatter plot. Anyone have an idea what we do first? Yeah, Ruby? Yeah. Dot scatter plot. Okay. And then what do we do? So let's hit tab and see what happens. It will say value error. Gemini doesn't quite know what we want to do. It does know that we want coffee as the data set. What do we want as the x variable? Yeah. 1999. So let's just put in 1999. And then what do we want as the y variable? 2019. And then I'm going to run this. Okay. I'd say that's no more complicated than Excel. What else might we do to improve this figure? Yeah, Jason.
Add a title.
Okay, so a title and then our two axis labels. Yeah, so Seaborn doesn't have the package to add titles, but matplotlib does, and it already imported that for you in at the beginning of the document. So all we have to do is I had friends in college also call me Tay-Tay before Taylor Swift got popular. I had that name first, just letting you know. So we've just like my friends called me Tay-Tay, we've renamed matplotlib PLT, and then we're just going to write out title and just call this coffee consumption per capita. Look at that. Gemini does a lot of the work for us. Coffee consumption per capita. And then let's put as the X type label, PLT X label is 1999. So I'm going to hit tab. And we get an X label of 1999 and a Y label of 2019. Gemini can do a lot of this for you, but make sure as you use the tool that you understand what you're tabbing through when you construct it. All we're telling Python to do is, just like we go through in Excel and click on a bunch of stuff, telling Excel to add a title and an X label and a Y label, all we're doing here is just listing out the steps that we're performing in sequence. So I'm going to run this, and we have our X label and our Y label and our title. What's maybe another thing we might want to do? Yeah, Ruby. So we can add a 45-degree line. Yeah, let's come back to this in a second. There's, I think, one more thing we should do before we get there. Yeah, Darren.
Fix the scaling.
So let's fix the scaling just like we did in Excel. So in Python, this is simple, just like all the other steps. I think a lot of times the difficulty with performing these steps is knowing which functions to call. I'm going to show you what the functions are, and then I'm going to show you how to get there if you're stuck, to help AI help bail you out. So here, I'm just going to say plt.xlim. So this is just setting the limits for the horizontal axis. I'm going to say I want it to go from 0 to 25, and then I'll run that. So now we just set 0 to 25 on the horizontal axis. And then I want you to, without using AI, to set the Y limits. We'll take 30 seconds here, and then just check that you have your neighbor check that you did it correctly. Okay, so I'm just going to tab through and select what Gemini gave me. Essentially, we're just replacing X and Y, and this allows us to set X and Y limits. Okay, any questions here? So the last thing we'll do, it's a little more complicated. This is like a pro tool. I want a 45-degree line. So I'm going to write this hash mark, which tells Python to not run this line. This is just something to be read by the human. Funny we have to say that in this time. So 45-degree line. And then all Python is doing is using matplotlib with a plot function, and then we're going from this point to this point, and we're just going to color it red. So I'm going to hit tab. This is how we write with Python, with AI these days. We use comments to tell it what we think we want, and then Gemini will interpret that and write us a line of code. So you can use this in your homework, and I encourage you to become familiar with generally how these things kind of work. But just like calculators on your addition homework in elementary school, you have to understand the tools that you're using. So one of the tools that we use today truly is AI, and you have to be familiar with how the tools are used. But if you're just writing code without understanding what you're writing, that will create some problems for you. So I'm going to emphasize the sort of understanding the tools as we go. But for these more advanced things, this is not a Python class. I don't expect you to be able to write these kinds of lines. So sometimes we'll use comments to help us out. So if we run this, this gives us a 45-degree line. We can make it prettier if we want. So like change the line style to more of a dashed, or make it like this. And then the last thing we'll do, you may have noticed at the very end, it looks like that didn't update. We'll do some coloring later. But yeah, I meant to add a change column at the end to allow us to make some colors, but I think we'll save that for another time. Okay, any questions here? How many of you does this feel intimidating to? Raise your hand if you feel somewhat intimidated by these lines of code. And how many of you feel very comfortable with this? Okay, and then everyone else is somewhere in the middle. That's great. I love that. If you're feeling intimidated, that's you're in the right room. This is not we're starting from the ground floor. These things often take a little bit of time to become familiar with. If you're feeling in the middle, that's great. And if you're feeling comfortable, I love that too. Okay, so nice. This, I don't want to, before we move on to time series, I just want to emphasize what we've done. This is truly something special. A scatterplot, it may look like a trivial and simple tool, but in the scheme of things, this is one of the most powerful visualization techniques we have at our disposal. What we did at the beginning of the second part of the slides in 1.4 is we tried to ask a question that seemed impossible using some of the original tools we had. With box plots, you can't answer this question. This is not a question we can ask. Or it's not a question we can answer with box plots, even with a strip plot. But a scatter plot allows us to track individual countries through time, which gives us not just the cross-sectional variation across countries in their coffee consumption per capita, but also 2 dimensions of coffee consumption for each individual country. So we have our panel data, which gives us both the cross-section and the time series, which we can represent with a scatter plot. Okay, I think this is pretty amazing that we were able to do these kinds of things. Okay, and then sort of some of the summary here. We can look at changes in the distribution itself. With box plots, we can't observe individual changes. Scatter plots allow us to do that, and then a 95-degree line, sort of a 45-degree line, allows us to visualize the changes. And then we can also use colors, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, amazing.